but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot see.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters. It is the start of a new week. It's good evening to Joe, and it is the Monday Club. Come on in. How are you, Joe?
Very well, Stephen. Yourself?
Very good, mate. Good to see you.
Good.
Tiring day yesterday. I was explaining to you before we came on air. Just the journey down was great. I got a lift down from one of my pals from Spider VPN. Big thanks to Nathan and the lads, Ryan, who was driving. Good to catch up with my pal Andy in Wolverhampton, who I've known for 25 years. Sorted out a wonderful bar for me and a couple of the lads to go in and meet up with a few Wolves fans before the game, which was great. And then a brisk 10-minute walk to the ground to go and finally get me photographed with the other Wolves mascot, following on from last year. But yeah, hey, great day. Could have been a better result, could have been worse, of course. But Newcastle getting a 1-1 draw at Wolves and getting a point that we didn't get last season is solidifies a very solid start to the season. The trip back, nightmare. The reason I got a lift down was because the trains were a nightmare. And I'm so glad I did. I know at least 4 or 5 people who missed the entire first half because of the trains yesterday. And me personally managed to get the train back, but it was a bit of a nightmare. Getting the train back from Wolves to Birmingham, then was an hour wait then. So obviously went for a drink. Special mention to the flight bar, which is a darts themed bar in Birmingham, just outside the station, 2-minute walk, and you can basically book a booth to go and play darts. Flight Lane, it's called. Very good. Yeah, the flight bar, brilliant place. 7 or 8 booths around the bar. You can go and play darts with your mates, and when you have the winning dart, it does a replay on the screen and everything. Very interesting. So anyone going down to Birmingham this season for Aston Villa perhaps or whatever, well worth a visit. And then after that, train from Birmingham down to Doncaster, which was another hour wait at Doncaster, and then finally Doncaster back to Newcastle. So I got back in about 11:20 last night. So people on the buses, Holly, who I saw at the match, got back a lot earlier than me. But listen, worth it, great. Roll on Liverpool on Wednesday, which reminds me, no show Wednesday night for anyone who normally tunes in to Geordie's here, Geordie's there. We do have a pre-recorded version of the Dream Team. And this time it's Elliot Slessor. For those of you who watch Friday Night Show, Elliot has picked his Newcastle United Dream Team. So I'll stick that up for 6 o'clock on Wednesday night. So you can tune in before you all settle down to watch Newcastle versus Liverpool at Anfield. But great to be back with you, Joe. And let's talk a little bit about the game. I mean, me personally, I enjoyed it. It was very hot in the Steve Bull Lure, the Lure stand. I wish I hadn't put my bloody tracksuit top on, that's for certain. But it was absolutely roasting down there. But yeah, Wolves came out of the traps really early, and they caught us. And they were deserved of their 1-0 lead. But I thought second half Newcastle came out. Certainly got the momentum going right from the kickoff. But the substitutions changed the game. Ryan Fraser, I think in particular, was superb yesterday. And ASM, I think, was highlighted on Match of the Day when I got back home last night and sat up and watched that and had a cuppa before I went to bed. Was essentially man marked by, if not 2-3 people on a regular basis throughout the game, which is what I remember seeing anyway. He couldn't really get into it. But what a goal to pull us level. And Newcastle could have gone on to win. It wouldn't have been fair, because I think on the balance of play, a draw was about right. But a couple of controversial issues in there as well. VAR again helping Kieran Trippier out, and Newcastle should have had a penalty. Cast iron penalty as well. Longstaff shirt getting pulled should have led to Newcastle getting a spot kick, which of course could have changed the whole perception of the game, and Newcastle could have gone on to win. But look, I'm happy. It's a point. The unbeaten run goes on. What was your take, Joe?
Can't say much more than that, Steve. Really, I enjoyed it. Fantastic result. I put it on Twitter. I found it quite frustrating at times. It kind of felt that in spells of the game we looked really good, and then in other elements of the game, we seem to be struggling. You know, Joe Linton would win the ball and then he'd do that thing where he's running down dark alleys. Same with St. Maximin. You know, the final ball just wasn't coming off. I thought Willock was very indifferent. I know Sean Longstaff's coming for a lot of kind of criticism, some really harsh, some of it reasonably justified. I thought Sven Botman was fantastic. I thought Fabian Schär did well to stay on with that kind of tackle that could have been took another way. I thought Nick Pope looked very solid, and then heart in mouth sometimes with the kick and Steve with the distribution. So it was a bit of a funny game, really. Fundamentally, it's a really difficult place to go, and I think they're certainly better than what their league position and maybe last couple of games at the back end of last season. We talked about that on Friday night on the Amigos. But overall, you know, I predicted it. I had it in my Super Six. I told everyone, you know, for me, it had 1 all wrote all over it. So we'll take that. We're still unbeaten, and it's becoming a habit that you know we find ourselves in, Steve. We're not losing football matches. I think the big thing we have to mention before I get on to St. Maximin's finish, which was just a touch of absolute class. But I think one of the worrying things for me was the injuries, Steve. We got kicked off the field at Tranmere in the midweek. Obviously, poor Emil Kraft now. You're talking months before you see him again. You've got Trippier holding various parts of his right leg. You've got St. Maximin holding the back of his leg, suggesting that there's hamstring injuries. And yet again, without putting a dampener on the result, you're kind of looking at that bench. And yes, I thought Ryan Fraser was excellent, but, you know, Murphy came on and offered very little again. You know, Chris Wood led the line relatively well, but just runs out of steam. And like you say, maybe sides are going to twig onto the fact, and something Man City didn't do, that the only way to stop St. Maximin when he's in that kind of, you know, up and at him form is to stick two men on him and you know, either stop the supply or certainly stop him turning. So there's lots to think about, Steve. You know, we had a bit of crack in the message in our WhatsApp group earlier for Matters, and one of the things that the lads were talking about was how busy it's going to be this week with Dan Ashworth and such like. And one of the things that I said was, I think the busiest people, particularly today and certainly tomorrow, will be the medical team, because there's only Newcastle United, isn't there, that can start to build a revolution, and you know, we're bringing these players in and we're going to look like an outfit, particularly if we bring a few more in as the window kind of closes. And yet here we are with 5 or 6 people on the injury list. So fingers crossed. The games are coming thick and fast. Obviously, we've got to go to Anfield on Wednesday, which will be no mean feat, especially what they've just done at the weekend. But overall, Steve, we're unbeaten. We got a point. We could have won it. Maybe we should have won it. Would it have been fair? Probably not. But I'd have took it just for that nonsense that Portuguese midfielder was talking after the game. So I was
going to ask about that, because that's just a point that's come up in the chat. I mean, Ian Toon Trader says, "Evening, Stephen Joe. What's your thoughts on the Neves comment? Made a right knobber of himself for me." I mean, it was crazy, wasn't it? Especially when the stats were getting bandied around. You know, the stats are available straight after the game. Anybody can screenshot the Sky app, and they were there for all to see. It was just embarrassing. Sour grapes.
I think, but it's interesting, Steve, isn't it? You know, we all have opinions. We all see the game differently. But I'd like to think that a Portuguese international Premier League captain would be able to kind of be a little bit more insightful. I don't think we were just launching the ball. I don't think Eddie Howe's turning us into Burnley. There is always times we do that, particularly looking over the top for the run of St. Maximin when we've got the ball in our final, in our defensive third. Chris Wood's a big lad. But other than that, I mean, I didn't think we were in the business of launching the ball up to Miggy Almiron and Ryan Fraser and hoping that they're going to get something in the air. So I don't know what he was watching, Steve. I don't know what he was getting at. Maybe a bit of sour grapes. But I think the stats will tell you alone. And sometimes, you know, Newcastle United are on the other end of these stats, particularly the possession stats. We tend to kind of let the opposition have the ball. But I thought in spells we controlled it, we kept it, we looked comfortable. So I'm not entirely sure what he's on about, to be fair, mate. Maybe he's in a mood because he didn't score the best goal of the game. Maybe, I don't know.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, Bruno, it was a shock. I think to most people that he wasn't playing. I mean, the rumours were abound, though. The night before, somebody clearly leaked the news that Bruno wasn't going to be playing. And, it started out as a little rumour on WhatsApp that I received a couple of messages. And then, then it became a Twitter phenomenon. People were putting it out on Twitter. Bruno's not going. Bruno's not there. And, he was injured. How much did we miss him yesterday, Joe?
It's interesting, mate, isn't it? And we've spent a long time. I know, obviously, we've signed Isak now. Quite where the work permit department went when we were certain that he was going to play, we don't know. But hey, it's Newcastle. We were talking a lot about Callum Wilson, weren't we? And what do we do if Wilson gets injured? With the ability, we've got Chris Wood there. We've signed Isak now. You saw the difference that Sam Maximin made when he moved into the middle, particularly for his goal, of course. So I think more worryingly for me, Steve, actually, it's what happens if Bruno Guimaraes gets injured. Because yes, we've got midfielders. Yes, John Joe Shelby's out at the moment, and I know again he divides the fan base, doesn't he? Sean Longstaff, is he quick enough? Has he got that brain? Is he switched on enough? Can Joe Willock play a football match with his legs closed? I don't know. Joe Linton's marauding round and doing what Joe Linton does. But actually, Steve, it probably highlights that we're shorter than we think in the middle of that park. And he's the man, isn't he? Everybody talks a lot about Sam Maximin, but let's be honest, it's Bruno that makes Newcastle tick. He certainly makes the crowd tick. And that will have been a massive loss. The interesting thing for me, unless people in the chat have seen otherwise, but I'm still not aware of the reason, Steve. So I'm hoping, I think Eddie Howe said he's got a slight knock, whatever that means. I hope what he doesn't mean is he's tore his calf or his groin's gone or something. I hope it's something innocuous, a little bit like Matt Targett's injury. So we'll see, mate. Yeah, but certainly miss him. And you can see why the rumours around certain midfield players, whether they play for Leicester City, whether they play for Chelsea or Ajax or whoever, are still allegedly on the radar to bring in before the window closes. Because from a quantity perspective, we're okay in the midfield. From a quality perspective, one or two of them come out. Joe Linton's marching towards a suspension, of course. I think we'll struggle, Steve. So yeah, massive miss.
Yeah, massive miss. Of course, Longstaff. For me, he runs around, he puts his foot in, but misplaced passes always been a bit of a bind for me with Longstaff. Look. It was one of those games yesterday. It was a tough game. Longstaff clearly has the nod from Eddie Howe on a lot of occasions. Anderson could have really won that game yesterday. A wonderful header at the back post. Unfortunate for him, it hit the bar. I don't expect Eddie Howe to rush him in, but is the scope at some point for putting Anderson in ahead of Longstaff, do you think?
I don't know if you or any of the viewers know him, Steve, but if anybody does, can you let him know he owes me a beer? Because when he hit the bar at the end, I jumped up in the air, me lager went all over the shop. So he definitely owes me half a bottle of lager. I thought he was excellent, Steve, and maybe that's the that's the little cameo that might just make Eddie Howe think a little bit. We talked a lot around Willock, is it Willock that's going to stay in? I think arguably if Anderson's going to perform like that, and that's the type of skill, that in that cameo that we've seen, arguably that's the position I'd play him in where Joe Willock was playing. He looked confident, Steve. He wanted the ball. He never shied away from it. Dropping back, taking it off his full-backs at one point. Tremendous to get in some decent positions, and very, very much, just the confidence and the ability to say, "Hey, give us the ball, and I'll put my head down and I'll go for it." So he certainly is one to watch. Whether, like you say, and I personally, although injuries now will probably dictate this, I personally still wouldn't be surprised if he went somewhere. But I think with what Eddie Howe saw against what is a very, very good Wolves side, Moutinho, Neves, they've got a very, very good midfield. He more than held his own, Steve. And do you know what? I mean, God knows, you'd have gone absolutely nuts, and I'd have spilt more than me beer if that editor had gone in at the end. It would have been a fabulous end to the match. So, yeah, good luck to him, and long may it continue.
Yeah, I mean, it was. Yeah, listen, it was a point was a fair result, like I said at the start. I mean, I can see a few people saying we had better possession, etc. But I just felt on the balance of play and chances, and one of them things. But yeah, it was a game we could have easily won, and we come away with a point. We've got to be happy with it. Most of us would have settled for a point. I certainly took 1-1 before the game. It's what I thought we would get, and Isak as well. BT says, do you think the work permit will arrive for Isak? A lot of people asking as well about the injuries. Any news on injuries? Training took place today. Some people saying that there was no sign of Trippier. I wouldn't be surprised if Trippier's out. He was almost injured in the game previous at Tranmere. I certainly saw him pulling up, and I thought he would go off yesterday. I thought he was going to go off injured, but he didn't. And that would be a nightmare, to be fair, losing Trippier as well, especially off the back of losing Kraft for such a long time.
And that was, you're right, Steve, that was a game. Trippier was not supposed to be anywhere near that Tranmere field, let's be honest. He was there, and obviously arguably probably doing his thing in the dressing room and pre and post match. That absolute nightmare, the way Kraft went down all of a sudden springs Trippier into a game. And it's probably, although these lads are super fit, but let's not forget this lad's on the wrong side of 30, Steve. So how many games does someone like Kieran Trippier play? He takes every dead ball, so the actual mechanics of wrapping his right foot around everything constantly, and maybe it was one kick too many. So, yeah, I think worryingly, as we said earlier, it's what part of his leg was he holding? Because at various points he was holding various bits. So let's hope and pray. And not only for his talismanic presence, one of the things that I found really, really interesting was when I looked at there was a stat that fired up from Sky Sports yesterday while the match was on about the top players in the league who were putting balls into the box, and Kieran Trippier was up there second only behind Trent Alexander-Armstrong at Liverpool, and we all know how effective he is, Steve. So not only are we losing a right back, not only are we losing a captain, but we're also losing some lethal delivery into the box. So he might be a massive miss. And here we are now. Manquillo was one of the first names on everybody's list to go out the door. We better be wrapping him up in cotton wool, because I guess that's all we've got now.
Yeah, it's desperate times, as you say. Only Newcastle could do this. But look, there is days left in the transfer window. I think we all felt that Newcastle would be pursuing more midfield targets, and the creativity is something which I think we need to improve in the team. So we will wait and see what the last few days of the transfer window bring before we start saying anything. And Tom Dixon says, Ross Barkley, anyone? He could be a squad player. This is something that was going around in the WhatsApp chat today amongst us guys. Not for me, I'm afraid. Ross Barkley has never been a player that I would ever want at Newcastle. And even when he was playing well, but ask yourself, why is he being released? And Newcastle are beyond that now. That's a Mike Ashley type of deal for me.
It's interesting. It's you're right, Steve. Fantastic football. He was great for a season or two when he played for Everton. He got his big money move to Chelsea with his big wages, and it just hasn't happened for him, has it? Let's be honest. I'm sure there'll be Chelsea fans who can pinpoint kind of marquee games and a couple of decent goals, but he never fulfilled his potential, Steve. And I think you're right. I think in terms of that character, I actually likened him earlier to would it be a masterstroke or would it be a Dele Alli type signing? Are these just these types of kind of flash lads? We've had a lucky escape with Lingard based on the performances and the wages that he's commanding. I'm led to believe, apparently, if it's true that he was on somewhere near £200,000 a week at Chelsea. Again, Steve, we wouldn't be looking at that, and we wouldn't be bringing that in, would we? So, I think for me, good player. The interesting bit about this is that's another player. Don't forget, so Ziyech has been linked with a loan move out of Chelsea. We're linked with about 45 of their players. Hudson-Odoi's just gone to Leverkusen, and now Ross Barkley's walked out the door, with a handshake. So. I wonder now about the availability of some of those Chelsea players that we've been heavily linked with, or what Chelsea have got up the sleeve. So, good player, Not for me. What would he do? Where would he go? I think Mr. Hasty said, "Is he a 10? Is he a defensive midfielder? Is he an anchor man? What is he?" So yeah, not for me.
Yeah, not for me either, mate. To be honest, I will bring in Tielemans and Seko for Fana. We can get both for 50 million total. Add Pulisic on loan, and that's a real string squad that can cope when they get an injury or two for Fana. Has he already gone to somewhere? I think.
Don't know if that's the same for.
Is it a different one? I've got no idea. Me and foreign footballers, mate. The only time I start looking at foreign footballers is when
I'm quite disappointed that they're fairly straightforward pronunciations. Actually, so you've dodged a bullet there.
I bet you are. I bet Alvarez. I like Alvarez as well. That's a good one. It's easy to say. That's for anybody.
Fofana is allegedly a £70 million deal being agreed with Chelsea for Fofana to go to Stamford Bridge. So I don't know if that's the same guy, but it looks like he's on his way to Chelsea if it is.
Yeah, the Alvarez situation, I'm not sure about that either. Seems to be a lot of speculation on social media, but very little from Newcastle United. There's been nothing that I've seen with regards to more bids for them. A lot of people asking about injuries. Well, Eddie Howe will be having his press conference tomorrow. That is the time that we will find out more about the injury list, the mounting injury list at Newcastle. So, from my perspective, no speculation on here from us. We will just wait and see what tomorrow's press conference with Eddie Howe, which will probably be in the morning, brings. Anderson, 70 minutes on, is perfect, full of energy, and will cause trouble. Sean, I agree. Great impact sub. Certainly looks better than some of the players that are playing in the first team at the moment, though, and it's great to see one of our own getting that opportunity. I don't think you can play Willock, Joe Linton and Anderson together unless we're going back to the KK days of outscoring teams. Don, tomorrow morning, as I've already said, what's the news on Bruno? A lot of people saying the hope that Anderson gets a chance on Wednesday. I don't think we'll have much choice. I think he probably will have to play because of, as I say, this mountain injury list. Willock is as much of a concern as Longstaff, says Michael. Willock missed an absolute sitter, was at fault for the goal with his half-arsed closing down. He's an impact sub, and we get 20 minutes from 90 out of him. I can't disagree. Willock doesn't have the golden touch in front of goal that he had when he first came in on loan, and he did miss an absolute sitter yesterday, and he was at fault for the goal. Like we said, you mentioned earlier about keeping his legs closed. But look, we got a point at Wolves. We didn't get beat. We'd have lost that game in previous seasons. And absolutely. It's all about the team mentality and players that can play together, Joe. Sometimes it's not about individuals. Yeah. And I keep having to remind people, not necessarily on here, people that I speak to, this is a building process and it's not going to happen overnight. I think match of the day 2 again last night were comparing Newcastle and Man City and saying it took Man City 4 years to win the Premier League, and it'll probably take Newcastle a little bit longer. Well, of course, our main aim really at the moment is to stay away from the relegation zone and not be involved in that, and to try and sustain some cup runs and to build the squad, build the team, and build the football club back up. Improve the training facilities, improve the stadium. And improve the team, and it's just going to all take time. There's so much damage being done. It's just going to take time, Joe, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. Very quickly going back to the point of Joe Willock, don't forget he was playing for a really good, decent manager and fantastic coach when he first came to the club. I don't know what's happened to him. He was a world beater. He made a club that had no money, spent 25 million on him and broke every rule in the book, didn't he? And all of a sudden, he just doesn't look at the races at the moment, Steve. But I agree in terms of where we're at. Listen, isn't it nice to be getting on the case of a £25 million footballer and saying, actually, he could be a bit better and maybe we need to replace him with bloody James Maddison. The national media comparing us to Manchester City. Can you only imagine? I mean, that in itself is wonderful, Stephen. It's interesting, isn't it? Because it doesn't look, we're not doing it the Man City way. They just went out and bought Robinho, if you remember. Next thing you know, they had Adebayor and Roque Santa Cruz and just anybody that was remotely decent. Man City bought a lot. I don't get the sense that Newcastle are doing that, I'm hoping that Isak is in the ilk of Sven Botman, who yesterday I thought was tremendous. More stats about the fact that he hasn't lost a header yet. You know, he looks steady away, you know, just getting used to the pace and the kind of directness of the Premier League. But, you know, Dan Burn, Matt Targett, Nick Pope, it's getting there slowly, Steve. And I don't think, I mean, where were we going to get these players from? You know, we're not in Europe. We haven't got anything to offer anybody in relation to kind of, you know, the massive nights under the lights, have we, on a Wednesday yet? So yeah, I think this season, very much like you've said, I think if we get to Christmas and we're absolutely, you know, we're closer to the Europa League than we are to the Championship, that's massive progress. I know people, you know, we are now touted to be the richest club on earth, and that may be the case. That's fantastic. But Rome wasn't built in a day, was it? Everything that we've done so far, and I'll even include Chris Wood in that, because I think he's been effective at what he does. Yeah, he's not banging goals in, but he's certainly kind of putting a shift in, and you know, allows us to kind of break from the front. So I think everything we're doing is fantastic, Steve. And yeah, you know, next season, you know, let's see what happens now. Let's see what happens in January. And then let's see what happens next summer, and we'll come back to kind of where we're at and how far we are beyond Man City. Because I still think it wouldn't surprise me if there's still a big one coming in somewhere, and it wouldn't surprise me if they're from Leicester City, because they look like a team who are really struggling. They look like a team in desperate need of a refresh, and the only way they can do that is by selling some footballers. So I wonder if there's a little part of me that thinks we haven't finished business with them yet.
Thanks for backing Chris Wood up. Nobody else does on this show apart from me. But yeah,
Steve, look, you know, he is what he is, isn't he? What were people expecting him to be? Les Ferdinand, you know, he's a big lad. He was never fashionable. He played in an extremely unfashionable Burnley side. But him and Harvey Barnes, was it Ashley Barnes? Was it? Were absolutely a nightmare for people. I'm sure he's horrible to play against. You know, so yeah, he doesn't hit the back of the net, but then again, neither did Dwight Gale, you know, and neither does Wilson when he's laid on an injury table. So I'm all for him. He's done what he needed to do. And do you know what? If we did nothing else, I've said it time and time again, we weakened Burnley to the point of, you know, they lost their main striker and ultimately paid the price for it. So he's all right. You know, he does the job, doesn't he?
He does. And if they would only cross the ball to him when he was on the pitch, he might have a chance of scoring. But no, I mean, and again, look, we got the point yesterday, but Ryan Fraser comes on and suddenly there's pinpoint accurate balls going into the box and not one person there to put the ball in the back of the net. And we saw against Tranmere, yes, lower league opposition, but when the ball's put into the box, that man can put his head on it and score goals. And we don't play to his strengths. And he usually plays in a 4-4-2. And he's asked to plough a lone furrow up front. He's just doing the job he's asked to do.
Not his game, Stephen. You know, ultimately, you can liken him. We also had another centre forward, don't forget, it was absolutely hopeless. My mate Joe Linton. And you can argue that was the same thing. You know, you had a big lad up front, and we did everything but provide the ball in the air to him. And the one time we do that, if you look at the goal we scored against Tranmere, what happened? Trippier whipped a diamond in, and Wood just went, there you go, there's my strength, thank you very much. So, you know, he does for me. Will he be there? You know, will he be there in 2 years' time, Steve? Arguably not. You know, if we're signing Isak now, for example, you know, I don't think the Chris Woods of this world survive, but we are still a team in transition. I don't think Dan Burn's there. I don't think Matt Targett's there. You know, players like this, Joe Willock, will not be playing for Newcastle in 3 years' time. But hey, if they've kicked off the revolution, Steve, they'll do for me.
Yeah, great stuff. Talking sense as usual, mate. Michael Pomar says Seko Fofana plays for Lens in France. Very much an upgraded version of the player Willock should be. Power, pace, drive from centre midfield. Very energetic, and everything goes through him. And Kenzie says Sekano Fofana from Lens. Right. Wesley Fofana is going to Chelsea. Thanks for clearing that up, guys. That's what you're there for, to give us good content, give us some good questions, and keep us right. as well. But thanks for updating us on that. Okay, big shout out as always to our sponsors, Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website www.skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, independent funeral directors. You can find them at 304 Old Durham Road, Gateshead. Telephone 0191 478 2730 or the website darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Thanks to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists, www.thegohd.com. And thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at mrvickys.co.uk or by telephoning 01768 210 102. Thanks to Away Day Clothing and to Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle. Thanks to NUFC Matters, people in the chat and all the moderators for all the help. It's always much appreciated. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, then hit the NUFC Matters logo in the bottom right-hand corner and you can subscribe for free. Hit the thumb up to like the show and click share to share to your social media. And you can drop into the comments box to speak to like-minded Newcastle fans or to post a question for the show. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and the rest. Usually goes up 24 hours after the show has finished on YouTube. If you want to join or make a donation, you can use the super chat down below in the chat, or you can click join underneath and join for a small price just to support the show and the costs that go with it. You can also pay a little bit more money via the website, nufcmatters.com, and you can get a £25 fee will get you a cup, a pen, a membership card, and a scarf, and entry into the monthly draw. You can also use the smartphone QR code. We'll take you straight there. And if you are a subscriber, we'll send out a car sticker to you. Just simply email john@nufcmatters.com and he will post you one out. We also support the food bank on the show. NUFC Fans Food Bank.co.uk is the website where you can go and make a virtual donation 365 days of the year. Peter Beardsley Soccer School is still ongoing. Last few bookings taking place. So if you want any more information on that, go to the website info@peterbeardsley.soccerschool.com. And don't forget, the Food Bank t-shirt, Fumometer, is up on my Twitter. Follow me on Twitter @Steve Wraith. Place a bid in the pinned post, and you could be the lucky winner of that t-shirt. And they're definitely fuming with everything that's gone on down there in the last few weeks. And a little early shout out for the Dog and Parrot next weekend. Super Mac will be there pre-match and after the match. If you want to come along and meet a number 9 Newcastle United legend, get yourself to the Dog and Parrot. Kids are welcome, and they do good beer and good food. Always well worth coming in. We also do the Super Mac raffle in there now, where we always raffle off a program from Malcolm's career, and he kindly signs it. Okay, back to the questions. Rachel, she says, Paqueta wasn't on the list for how this transfer window, apparently. I trust Eddie that he wasn't someone to fit into the squad. If that's the case, have we gone in for Maddison again, or is it just Twitter talk? Just Twitter talk at the minute, I think. I'd love to see Maddison. Joe, I've said this for for the best part of half a year now, that the January transfer window, I wanted him to come in, and I'm still hopeful that there might be one final bid goes in for him.
Do you know what, Steve? Without getting overly carried away, like I've just said, I think there's business to be done with Leicester City. At the bottom of the league, or they're certainly not far off. If they are, they're really, really struggling. And yes, they need freshening up. If Fofana's gone to Chelsea, there's 70 million in the pot. But I think to regenerate and rejuvenate a new side, they'll probably need a bit more than 70. So do you go back? Do you actually go back? How happy is Maddison? Tielemans, looking at the fact that the bottom of the Premier League and just can't get a break at all. And then you look at the other end and Eddie's marching us to Europe, So listen, it's interesting, and I never gave up on Diaby. Hudson-Odoi just signed for Leverkusen, so my head now starts running away with me, and I think, do you know what? Would you prefer Maddison and maybe a loan, or would you sign Tielemans and Diaby? And I think for me, if I had the opportunity to stick Tielemans in that midfield, push Bruno further forward when he's fit, and then I'm looking left at Sam Maximin, I'm looking right at Diaby, I'm looking forward at Isak, I start to get excited all of a sudden, Steve. So, but I agree with you. You know, we said it at the time, didn't we? You'd absolutely love James Maddison. What a footballer. So watch this space and don't be surprised if you know, if you see some movement on either one of them. I did say in the chat earlier on, why don't we just buy them both? Bugger it, you know, why not? But certainly one or the other. I think if it's Tielemans, there's an attacker coming. I think if it's Maddison, you know, that'll be our strike force, I think, because I can see him playing out on that right-hand side.
Yeah, interesting. I do think there's business to be done. Split opinions, as always, in the chat about Chris Wood. I'm not getting into it. I'm not getting into it with Chris Wood because, you know, I do that on a Thursday night with Super Mac and Gibbo. Steve Baker, welcome to the chat. He says he feels sorry for anyone being a Newcastle fan. He says, I support a decent club, Bristol City. Well, good luck to you, mate. We've all got our cross to bear. And I did see Graham Nichols saying, having a pop there about you saying that Willock played for a decent manager. It was called sarcasm, Graham, from Joe. He certainly wasn't suggesting that Steve Bruce is a great manager, mate. It's called sarcasm.
I was.
You weren't. I definitely know you weren't. Steve Middlemas says, is it about time the club complain about journalists like Oliver Holt? Even Lineker had a go about the green and white shirt, which made its Premier League debut at the weekend. And yes, the press and media, those who we've come to know, I guess, as critics of the Saudi regime, and the Saudi PIF involvement, started to show the true colours again on social media and in the written press.
I thought we looked really smart, and I know it's not a fashion competition, but you know what? I thought it looked $1 million. I thought it was class. Yeah, it's the national colours of Saudi Arabia. Good. Saudi Arabia own our football club, so why not? Other clubs do it. There was a great graphic. I meant to send it on Twitter, and it was kind of other clubs with how can I put it? I need to be very careful. Questionable kind of countries owning their football clubs, you know, and how many little, you know, how many clubs pay homage to these teams, Leicester City, Chelsea, Manchester City, etc., PSG, etc. So why shouldn't we do it, Stephen? Do you know what? You know, if without running the risk of sounding like Mr. Patterson, but what have we said? What a way to stick your two fingers up at people and say, hey, deal with it. You know, the Saudi mags are here. So yeah, we've got a green and white kit. So what? You know, we can have a whatever colour kit and we'd still buy it and we'd still support them. I can see why it winds people up. I'll apologise if anybody saw me late night tweet. I replied to my dad last night, who replied to Oliver Holt, and I used an expletive. I've deleted it. But why do we give these people, you know, why do we talk about them, Steve? Why do we mention them? Why do we give them oxygen in terms of the kind of the algorithm and the clicks and the likes and the kind of retweets and the replies? Because actually, all they're doing is winding us up. You know, is he seriously saying that because we didn't play brilliantly well, that hopefully we'll never have to see that abhorrent white and green kit again? The man's talking nonsense, and they do it. TalkSport do it. Mr. Edwards does it. Mr. Holt clearly does it, and everybody else does it for one reason and one reason alone, Steve. It's because they get us to bite. And I think the second that we just let them get on with it, let them have their opinion, it doesn't hurt us. It didn't hurt Alan Saint-Maximin when he dropped his shoulder and you know, levelled that ball. So what, mate? You know, crack on. You know, the beautiful irony is that these publications have Saudi Arabian ownership, I'm led to believe. So unless he's working for free or give, you know, donating his wages every month to Amnesty International, I think the word's hypocrite.
Yeah, I would agree. It's, you know, one to ignore. I would say don't get sucked into it, like you've said, from our perspective. Dave asks a question which I know you wanted to cover, so now is the time, Joe. Is there a Super Six this week?
Yes, there is, Dave. And not only is there one at the weekend, there's also one on Wednesday. So please get your predictions in as soon as you can. It's really, really hotting up. The beauty of Wednesdays, this will be our first prize winner. Johnny Allen's finally counted his pennies. I know he's doing everything one-handed at the moment, but he's asked me to share that. Where is he? So John's asked me to share kind of the prizes, Steve. We've never got round to telling anybody kind of what they're going to win. So for the monthly winners, John, there's £20 up for grabs plus a T-shirt. I hope it's just a massive picture of my face because I'm narcissistic like that. The runner-up in the competition for the season will get £100 plus a T-shirt. And if you win, we've got £500 plus a T-shirt plus a trophy for the overall winner. So if you're manager of the month, fantastic. You'll double the money that you paid to play, and if you win it, you're looking at £500, and that's fantastic. So yeah, get your predictions in. Always keep an eye on your app. Always keep an eye on the app. At the top, it'll tell you when the next round is and when you need to get your predictions in.
There we go. John did send me the graphic and I completely forgot all about it. So well done for reminding us on that, Joe. Winner £500 plus T-shirt and trophy. Runner-up £100 and T-shirt. And monthly winner £20 and T-shirt. So there we go. I'll keep giving that a push throughout the season. But best of luck to all of those who don't get locked out like I did right at the start. Holly Blades, good evening. She went, thoughts on Longstaff? Many fans are saying he should never play again. For me, at this moment in time, he still has a place in the squad, Joe. Yeah, we touched on it earlier, but I didn't really commit, did I? Depending on who we sign in the remaining the transfer window, if we don't sign any other midfielders, if we're forced into buying a right back, let's say Trippier's injured, and this is theoretically, if Trippier's injured and Kraft's injured, we're going to need somebody to come in at right back. Otherwise, we're going to be forced with this nonsensical idea of bringing Manquillo back from, the reserves or wherever he's, playing. And, then, we don't bring a midfielder in. It seems as if Eddie's happy with the midfield. So I would say, I would keep Longstaff in there, but with the option of bringing Anderson on as and when, it's horses for courses. The way things are going with injuries at the minute, we could lose another one or two players, who knows? But yeah, I wouldn't say the jury's out on him. I mean, he needs to find a level of consistency, which is what we've been saying about ASM. I like ASM. He gets us out of his seat. He's a flair player. In the last two games he's played, he's produced. So, maybe that's what we need from Sean Longstaff. He seems to go through, good form and bad form. Lots of players do. So, yeah, I wouldn't say that he should never be, never play again. But for me, if there's another player comes in the midfield, then I think these days could be numbered. Joe?
Yeah. Evening, Holly. I hope you and the family are well. Long time no see. The interesting bit about Longstaff, Steve, is there's always been a footballer in there. I think we know that. When he first broke into the side, he looked really, really good. He looked tidy. People were likening him to a younger Michael Carrick, in his mannerisms and the way he kind of sprayed the ball around. I don't know whether there's something about his confidence. I don't know whether there's something about the fact that he is bit part. Let's be honest. Had Bruno Guimaraes have been fit, Longstaff doesn't play. Had John Joe Shelby been fit, Longstaff doesn't play. If we sign whoever from Leicester City tomorrow, Longstaff doesn't play. Can you hear that?
What is it?
That's the frog. That's the frog having his say. So yeah. Should he be kicked out for having a couple of bad games for Newcastle? That's ludicrous. And actually, watching Newcastle over the years, Steve, if we abandoned every player that had a bad game, we'd have gone out of existence 30 years ago, wouldn't we? Because we've had some absolute tripe. So yeah, let's not be too harsh on the lad. He is, as people say, one of our own or one of your own, acknowledging I'm not a Geordie. But yeah, there's probably a place in. I wonder if what he needs, Steve, is a run in the side. And I get the sense with him, he's either one of these guys who needs a run in the side or he needs to go and play football somewhere else, because I think he suffers from being a bit part player.
Yeah, I would agree, mate. I would agree. Dubravka done deal to Man U. I'm just trying to find that if that's on social media. I've not seen it yet. Lots of people expect. Allegedly, yeah. A lot of people talking about Aubameyang as well. There was some news out about him today, rather disturbing news, that he's just been subject to a robbery at his house with his family. 4 armed men have come into his house, pistol whipped him by the sounds of it, and stolen jewellery from a safe. So he's got other things on his mind rather than a move back to the Premier League there, that would be said. Michael asks something a bit different. He says, after 4 games so far, Steve and Joe, who do you think are the favourites to go down now? Should Everton and Villa be worried? My mindset, Bournemouth. I think it's virtually assured the Bournemouth will be returning. Nottingham Forest, despite the financial outlay, I think we'll end up sacking Steve Cooper and bringing somebody in, and I think that will be an actual disaster. And depending on what happens, here's a little outside bet at Leicester. It could be Leicester.
That is a massive shout, that, Steve.
It is. I think Everton and Villa should.
Right,
I think Everton and Villa should be worried, but
clubs
all is not right at Leicester, is it? All is not right at Leicester. Southampton will be down there as well. But if you want us to name 3, I'm going to say Bournemouth, Nottingham Forest, and I'm going to go for an outside bet at Leicester.
I've been looking at the club called Southampton for the best part of 8 years, just waiting for them to drop, and they never do. And I can't ever quite work out how they keep getting away with it. I hope and pray that Tottenham go down, because I hate that football club. But being realistic, I think, bless Bournemouth. Forest, Steve. Forest's an interesting one, isn't it? We saw them at St James's Park and they did absolutely nout. They've had a couple of good results. They looked busy yesterday against Tottenham, but for me, it was like men and boys. Spurs were just letting them play, and then bang, one pass later, and Harry Kane's away, or Son, or Richarlison at the end, or whatever they were doing. So Tottenham were messing about with them yesterday, basically. 19 players. They've signed 2 more today, I'm led to believe, with more on the horizon, according to the manager. How you put that together and stay up, I don't know. Fulham are an absolute yo-yo club. Do they have enough to kind of consolidate in the Premier League? Although they do look a bit better this year. But to answer the question, Bournemouth are a given. I'll probably go with Forest and maybe Aston Villa, just so we can laugh at them.
Longstaff finished last season very well. Thought he turned a corner, but against Tranmere and Wolves, he regressed to the player he was for much of the last couple of years, says Michael. Good point. The Frog t-shirt, definitely, says John Justice Allen. So Donald just says, can you tell the Frog to hop it, please, Joe, when it starts to make noise during the show? Norman says, we need a virtual arseholes and hypocrites bin. Once someone goes in, they don't get a mention again. Totally block them and ignore them. I just like that. Just released. Bruno's out for the next 2 games, says JC. Injury possibly picked up against City. Not detected until after Tranmere, which is odd. He put out a post on his Instagram as well with a battery running low symbol, somebody said earlier. So Dan says Joe's got Kermit working the camera. John the tipster Frog. The Frog thinks Longstaff isn't good enough too. We're getting lots of Frog comments now. Unfair criticism of Wood tonight. Service to win was awful. Sparky, I didn't criticise Wood. Neither did Joe. We both spoke up for him. Maybe people in the chat have criticised him. But you know what, Sparky? Chris Wood will do for me. In fact, I will say that he will probably get a couple of goals this season, which will be very important. And it could be in the League Cup. Might get us to Wembley. I hope he does. I hope he scores in every round and gets it to Wembley and makes a few people swallow their words. Stephen Nutkin says, if Everton end the season, end up in relegation zone, then Premier will fine them with plus points to save them, says Stephen. Getting a point in about the fact that they weren't fined for their financial fair play. And Longstaff, says Mark, has a special skill you don't see very often. Now and again, he just passes to the opposition. There's one or two doing that. To be honest. Trippier's not faultless in that department either. When he gets the ball, he wins it and then gives it straight away, or tries to play a World Cup ball over the top.
Yeah.
Dodon says, ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. And we're going to have the frog chorus now with Paul McCartney. Forrester preparing to play in the multiverse and have infinite players. I do like your name, by the way. Alan Bradley's Blackpool Death Trap. Coronation Street, Holly, you'll be watching still. That's a Coronation Street scene. You should Google it, Holly. Educate yourself. Frog on the Tyne, says Mad Mark. And don't want to bash Wood too much. How I am on. We've been down that road before, son, on this programme. That's a Friday night joke. But thought was very telling when needed a goal. We took him off and put ASM through the middle. Yeah, frog on the smog, says Blue Rhythm Boy. And new folks are getting worried about Villa. And Michael says, think Bournemouth had gone already. Watched pretty much every minute of Leicester's games this season. They've still got a lot of quality in the team. I think they'll get out of it. It's interesting, this Premier League already, though, isn't it, Joe? There's been some queer old results. Liverpool 9-0 and Newcastle 3-3 with Manchester City. Deserved leaders really in that game for long periods of the time. Manchester United's horrific first two games. Liverpool getting off to an awful start. Arsenal leading the Premier League. It has got the feeling, and I think it's Jesse March at Leeds who said this is going to be a strange season in the Premier League.
It always is, Steve, isn't it? Early doors, and which is why, as much as we're trying not to get overly carried away, we don't take a great amount of notice of the league table, do we, until at least maybe 10 games have been played, I guess. People trying to settle, people bringing people in and hoping for the best, people still messing about with their formations and what have you. We always say it time and time again, the cream will always rise to the top. A few people, I'd read comments about it's time for Klopp to go when Liverpool had been beat off Man United and stuff. And, the class always shines through, and it always will. So I enjoy this part of the season, though, arguably, if we play Manchester City in 6 games' time, do we get the same as we always get off them? It's quite nice to get some of these games out of the way, particularly Wednesday night as well. I would like to think that, and I am going to put my neck on the line now, Steve, that we're not going to ship 9 on Wednesday night. There's famous last words for you. But I'd like to think Botman and Shah had a bit more about them. And interestingly, if you remember, picking up on a point you made earlier about that right-hand side, and without Kraft and without reverting to a half-injured Manquillo and without Trippier, this might just force Eddie Howe's hand in terms of that 5 or that 3-5-2 that we talked about. Does Bernshire and Botman play with wing backs? And arguably, I'd be less concerned if that was someone like Murphy, for example, not the greatest defender in the world, but certainly got that engine to get up and down, and that might be a better fit than just trying to throw a right back in from somewhere and hope they can do the business. So it'll be interesting to see what we do with that right-hand side. I don't think it's a funny position, and unless, Kraft's obviously out for months, unless we know that Kieran Trippier is going to be out for a prolonged period of time, I don't see us buying a right back. Unless there's somebody we can get on loan from somewhere, maybe. So maybe this is the tactical change that we see. Because watching Dan Burn yesterday, again, as solid as he is, Stephen, I don't know what it was like to actually see him. You were there. He's not the marauding left back that gets up and down the park, is he? Let's be honest.
Just defensively solid. Got to say as well, Trippier, we don't know if he's injured. Look, I looked at him yesterday, and he got injured against Tranmere. There's no doubt about it. He was gingerly, going around the group, but he was fit enough to play yesterday. Played yesterday. There's just moments where you look at him and you just feel like you wish you could wrap him in kid gloves. Do you know what I mean? That's the problem. He's such an important player to us in such a short space of time. He's made such an impression, and it just looked as if there was something not right again yesterday. But it might just be me. It might just be paranoia. Well-intentioned paranoia. It has to be said as well. Good evening, one of my favourite boxers, Club Alang. He says, I've just had frog's legs for me tea. Nightmare, made a right mess. The kick peas all off me plate. Unbelievable.
Can't say that.
I don't see where Everton get the goals from to stay up, especially if they lose Gordon and don't replace him. Frank Lampard says he's going nowhere, Michael. Villa need to sack Gerrard fast. We'd love to see both of them go down. And early days, look at our start last season compared to where we finished, says Blue Rhythm Boy. Owen, good evening. Says, should Anderson start the next game? Only player capable of creating something. Owen, I don't think it'll have gone unnoticed by Eddie Howe how much he's progressing in such a short space of time. I don't think he'll start. I think he'll still come on as an impact sub, but and still be used in these games against teams in the the Carabao Cup for as long as we're in it. Kenzie, come on, man. The Shearer statues move more than Wood has. Unfair. BT says we're going to be somewhat short against Liverpool with no backup, which is interesting. How times have changed. Sitting in my garden on a bank holiday Monday with a couple of beers instead of a full-on session in Whitley Bay. Jack, I used to do that myself, mate. Pink kangaroos. Going to the Hairy Lemon and having a fight on the slippy pole outside the bar with a cushion, knocking people off. Great days, mate. Great days. Mark Ritchie, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. Always like to pick me dad up in a taxi and talk football. Feel for Isaac, getting debut with injury-stricken side. Might have been the difference, but going to be tough. Yeah, I think we'll be fine. Fraser can play wing back, says Geordie J. Gaiman, which is interesting as well. Looks as if Tony Mowbray is going to be the new Sunderland manager as well. Not Sean Dyche or Pochettino or Jose Mourinho, surprisingly, that they seem to think that we're going to get. Yeah, God.
I've never seen a meltdown like it, Steve. Fantastic. And then the dust settled. And then it was like, why wouldn't Pochettino come and manage us? And I'm just thinking, this is class. And we're the deluded ones. Yeah, we're the deluded ones, aren't we?
Crazy, mate. Absolutely crazy. Howe needs to ban Miggy using his left foot. Gets so many chances to cross with his right, and he never does. He just cannot. He has to stop, check, and get back onto his other foot. Ken says they are both big clubs. The league stays strong if teams like Bournemouth and Southampton go down. Liverpool 10 and Newcastle 0, says Arthur, who I would imagine could possibly be a Liverpool fan or a Mackham. You never know. RB, right back, is a huge problem, guys. Trippier can't play all the games. He needs competition too, says Sean. Rachel, best of luck with your rehearsals. Hope everything is going well with that. Break a leg, as they say. And Yano says break a leg, Rachel. Alan says Liverpool will be tough in the middle of the park. They've been poor there, but Fabinho returning improved them massively. Yeah. And Steve, my bad. Trippier is in the training picks. That may help. Dan, good stuff. I'm just saying my feeling is, that there's a few of them carrying knocks. Dave says ASM was limping as well, Steve. Yeah, he was holding his hamstring when he came off, but let's hope so. Let's hope that these players are okay, because they're going to be big players on Wednesday. But with another game coming thick and fast on Saturday, Newcastle may well, may decide that Liverpool's not the game to risk them and give them a little bit of a, give them a chance. Oh, yes, it is your kid. Sorry, Mark. Pass on me best to him, mate. Pass on me best to him. George Young says, I agree with John. If Trippier is out, 5 at the back with Lewis and Murphy wing back sorted. Yeah, Lewis, I still think might get a run out as well, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. Particularly in that formation, as I say, because the emphasis isn't massively on defending. The emphasis is about getting back and supporting kind of the left or the right hand side. So, yeah, I mean, Lewis has certainly got legs, and I think arguably is better going forward than he is going backwards. So, maybe.
Interesting as well to hear that, Eddie Howe interview where he said that, he may well play Isak and Wilson up front together, which means a change of formation, which somebody mentioned. Steve Middleman said, could we play 3-5-2? It could very be possible, moving forward, couldn't it, when we get our players back?
Yeah. And he always, I know going back to the Bournemouth days, Steve, from what I can remember, they always played with 2 up front, Wilson and King, I think it was, with the wingers, Ryan Fraser and his mate, kind of floating the balls in, and they had a decent side. So has that always been in the thinking? Do we play this formation because he hasn't got the players to do what he wants? I don't know.
Yeah, Michael says he'll be shocked if Trips or ASM make it on Wednesday. Honestly, going with 3 centre-halves would be perhaps our best option. If Trips is out, who's captain? Who knows? Jamal Lascelles is still club captain, but it's a good question. I would imagine it would be either Dan Burn or Botman. Chris Wood, yeah, possibly. God, you don't wind them up just before we're finished. Pope, Fraser, Byrne, Botman, Shaw, Target, Longstaff, Big Joe, Wood, and Isak in a 5-3-2. Michael, I like it. A good way to finish. Ken says need a more solid second 11. 5 good subs make a huge difference. And Ken, that's what we'll do over the next transfer window or two. Great show as always. I'm back tomorrow, slightly earlier time tomorrow of 5 o'clock. Ross Gregory back tomorrow night after his vacation. And Wednesday night is a dream team with Elliot Slesser giving us his Newcastle United dream team. Thursday night, Supermac and Gibbo. And Friday, as always, is the 3 Amigos. Joe, as always, pleasure to spend an hour with you, mate. Have a good night.
And you. Take care, everybody.